G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith and I'm your host, and this time it's a segment of Aussie Golf History, and I've called this one The Ferrier Family, from Carnoustie to Manly via China. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is a great dive into some Aussie golf history, hence the title, of course, and I do something a little bit different. I'm heading down to Manly Golf Club, where I'm joined on this segment by Philip Baird, Director of Golf for Manly Golf Club. And Phil knows so much about Aussie golf history, particularly a great deal to do with Manly, of course, and also a lot of Sydney's golf history. Very knowledgeable guy. Had to do it with Phil because he knows so much about Manly Golf Club. And it's a great story, a great lineage. And this has come about because of some new information that has come from China that's recently come to light. So there's a number of people that have been involved in getting this information out. So we talk about that, but it's a wonderful story. It's not a very long episode, which is great. We get so much information out of this in a short space of time. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to jump straight into it. This is episode number 204. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to another segment of Aussie Golf History here on the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast, and we're doing something special this time around. We're on site here, and I've got a wonderful guest. We're going to do an introduction, but I've made my way to Manly Golf Club as part of this podcast segment, and we're in the office of the Director of Golf here at Manly Golf Club, Phil Baird, who's on the other side of the mic here. G'day, Phil. How you doing?
Steve, good to see you.
Mate, thank you for this. This is special. Your office here is unique. Well, I mean, it's every time I come in, I'm always eyeballing something that's up on the walls. There's history everywhere. You got these clubs. You just showed me a Jim Ferrier club.
Yep.
There's photos up here on the wall of times gone by. It's the 30s.
Yeah, look, we got some photos here from the 30s, from the days gone by of the original clubhouse, which was it's had 3 or 4 transformations over the years. Some of the forgotten heroes of Manly.
Yeah,
I've got them here on the walls. There's hickory clubs, hickory putters, and just all things old golf worldy is in my wheelhouse.
Oh, mate, it's your thing. It is your thing. And look, you're a member of the Australian Golf Heritage Society, which I am as well. Now, you've been part of it for a long time.
Yeah, I've been on the committee for about 10 years now, and they've done a fantastic job. Led by Mr. Howard and Les.
Ross Howard and Les Brown.
Ross Howard, Les Brown these days, who do a great job, and we just try to keep history alive.
It is a challenge. It's something, but it's so wonderful. And now that we're getting, more and more years go on, a lot of clubs and courses are turning 100 years old.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
This place is, 1903?
We had our centenary year in 2003, so over 20 years ago.
So you're moving.
And we've just had our 100th centenary of the building last year. So
that's the one, yeah, okay.
So, but there are a lot of good clubs, your Avondales and whatnot coming, that have just had their centenary year or celebrating in the next 3 to 5 years. So absolutely,
I'll be fortunate to do some work with them as well and exploring that history, which I love. Look, this is what it is. It's Aussie golf history. But mate, we want to talk a little bit about the essence of this one is the Ferrier family. I touched on the club that you've showed me, which was Jim Ferrier's putter. Well, that's just unbelievable. Right? I'm holding a piece of history in my hand. The Ferrier family has got so much history. And that's something that we're going to dive into is the family. And there's been some new information that's come from overseas that we're going to explore.
Yep.
And we're going to go through that as well. But, mate, if you could just tell us a little bit of your background, because you've been at Manly Golf Club for a long time. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, myself, look, I'm an avid golfer. I've been a professional member of the PGA for 40 years at the end of this year. And it's been a great journey. And I'm in my 24th year or season here at Manly Golf Club as Director of Golf.
Yep. Unreal.
Through that time, it has just been an absolutely amazing journey, experiencing the centenary year.
Yeah.
The rebuild of the golf course, which was a 3-year project, finished in July 2012. We opened, and that's really transformed the golf course back to what it is. And we've just actually finished painting the building. The building's just come back to its former grandiose style of white, red tiles, and it's looking really, really nice. So look, we're very proud of our club here at Manly, and I'm certainly very proud and keen to keep the history going for the next few generations.
It's easily lost is the thing that I've learned in all the work that I've done in doing bits of history from bits and pieces as well. Mate, I was not long ago here in the clubhouse doing did Keeper of the Greens here with your superintendent, Brendan Bennett, which is fantastic. So, mate, this is my second time here to do a podcast, and I'm excited about this. So, mate, we've got a bit of your background. You love history, right? This is so much of what you do.
Where it really started for me was when they started the redevelopment. They found an old bronze plaque on what is now the 13th tee behind a hedge.
Okay.
And they decided to rebuild the tee, and there's this plaque appeared, and nobody knew the significance of this plaque. It was a size of a coaster. It looked like a follow-through. And, of course, I thought it was Jim Ferrier. And I started pig-reading through the files, the history, the archives, and I couldn't find anything. Nobody knew the significance of this find. Okay. And I brought Ross Howard's father up here with Kilnagel after a hickory event at Longreef, and Kel said, no, that's not Jimmy, that's Aussie Pickworth. He lived in that house right there. He used to jump the fence and play 6 holes before work, and it all came to light, the significance of the plaque. I published an article, The Mystery is Solved, and I got a wonderful phone call from Robert, his son, who was about 75 at the time. He said, I'm delighted with the find. Wow. I've got to come to Sydney and eyeball this, and I would like to write a plaque with you.
Wow.
Honouring my father.
Oh.
And, he turned up and he had the holy grail of memorabilia and stuff with his father, and he shared his early days here at Manly, which was so special. And again, that was just another forgotten hero, along with Ferrier, that all came from around the same era.
It's incredible. That I've got a fascination, and I've studied a lot of Dan Suter's history, and that's something that connected us early on.
Absolutely.
When I did Dan Suter's story in the early part of the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. But from the earliest days, the thing that I often come back to in and around not just Sydney golf or New South Wales golf, but so much of Australian golf, comes back to Manly Golf Club, which surprises me and continues to surprise me. Yep. We talk about Suter, we know Ferrier, you mentioned Aussie Pickworth. There's another couple of names as well.
There's Harry Hattersley. I mean, he was Australian amateur champion back in the 30s. He was, best friend to Ferrier, and these guys bounced off each other. They helped each other. One mentored the other, and that seems to be the chain of command that went on for years.
And there's Eric Appley, as we know, top competitor.
Eric Appley was here.
As an amateur. Yep. There's Joe Kirkwood, of course, as well.
Appley played here. He also designed the building. I mean, his fingerprints are all over the history here.
Unbelievably so. It's, like I said, so much history. And I think we often talk about some of the other clubs in and around Sydney with the bigger names, like a Royal Sydney, for example, or even Concords to a certain extent, and New South Wales. But Manly is a key cornerstone of history, not just in Sydney, but Australia, as I mentioned, which is important. Every time you find something and you tell me on the phone or you send me a text message, that stuff is incredible to rediscover, isn't it? And have a record of it.
They're all linked.
Yeah.
They're all linked. I mean, a lot of the early members of Manly came from the Mossman Golf Club and from Camaray Golf Club.
Yeah, right.
There were many members from Royal Sydney, many of the founding members from Royal Sydney that actually were members at Manly as well.
There you go. Okay.
And I think the likes of Hattersley, for example, to play the monthly medal in the morning at Royal Sydney, and they zip across and play in the last group the monthly medal here at Manly. So
that's unbelievable.
There's some great stories there.
Unreal. So, mate, this is about the Ferrier family.
The Ferrier family.
So let's get a little bit of an idea from yourself, because you're the man who knows a lot of this stuff. Let's tell us about Jim Ferrier, the professional that we would have all heard of. Yep. Because we're going to go backwards, but let's start at what we know. Tell us about Jim Ferrier, the man that came from Manly that would then go on to the US, as we know.
Okay. Well, the short of it is he started playing at around 4.5 years of age. He lived in Manly Vale, just not too far from the golf course here. Yep. He was mentored initially by his father, and along with the professional Dan Suter. So learn from the best. Yeah. The little I know about his teenagehood, I believe he was an extremely good putter. He was a great putter, huge hitter, and a very big man. I mean, you can see the photo on the wall here. So we're looking at a photo here, folks, of the 1931 A-grade team, pennant winners. And Jim Ferrier sits in the middle of the photo. He absolutely towers the rest of the team.
He's a big unit. Honestly, he could play front row. I mean, I think from what I've seen, he's 6'2" or 6'3".
No, at least.
Had to be more because he towers over everybody.
And and just before we started the podcast, I did pull up some footage of him playing golf in the 30s, and he had his own style, but he was a huge hitter. So huge hitter, great putter. And the other thing we learned over the recent years is that he actually played with a limp from a soccer injury from a young age. So that was something that's interesting. We don't talk about, but that's something there that's quite interesting.
Something indeed. And like you say, like when he hit the ball, it stayed hit. Some of that vision you showed me before of him swinging a club, I mean, he was a brute of a man, and something that was a part of his game. And I suppose with that in mind, it's not something you would often hear about big hitters and being very good putters at the same time, because that's very well-rounded game of golf, I would imagine.
Well, look, when I look back at some of his records and the scores he shot back then with the old-fashioned golf ball and the equipment from those days, he must have been good. I mean, he still holds a course record here set back in the 30s in the New South Wales Close. He shot a 10 under par 62.
10 under?
Yep, 10 under par 62 in 1936.
10 under par?
Yep.
In one round?
Yep.
That's staggering.
Unbelievable. And I think he shot a 64 in the same year in the Kalara Cup. So like we're talking some seriously, low.
Unbelievable talent.
Yep. I mean, that's, I don't know what the greens were like back in those days, but, it's remarkable golf. And the card still sits here. But look for Ferrier, it started, he started as a young boy, 4.5 years playing. He was club champion here at 15 years of age.
Club champion at 15?
Club champion at 15.
Overall the club, not just juniors.
No, he was a club champion.
That's everybody.
He's club champion at 15. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that, it just went from there. I mean, he went on to, before he even went to the US, very established amateur career. I mean, he won 4 Australian amateur championships in the 30s, I think 35, 36, 38 and 39. And before he won his 2 Australian Opens in 38, 39 as an amateur, which is, again, another rare feat.
Far out. So with all those accomplishments and that serious amount of talent, he moves to the US.
He moves to the US and became and played the PGA Tour.
Okay.
He ended up having 18 PGA Tour victories and about 36 professional victories worldwide. So
wow,
it was a pretty big CV. Of course, the highlight being being the first Australian to win a major championship, the 1947 PGA Championship.
No way, the first Australian to win a US PGA.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep. So look, we had earlier pioneers such as Kirkwood, but he was the first guy to win a major.
A major.
Yep.
Far out. Unbelievable. What a record.
And then spent many years, in the US.
Stayed in the US and to play golf and continue to play golf. Quite, and ultimately he was inducted in the Australian Hall of Fame.
1985. Yep. It took a long time, but look, much deserved. And again, he was one of our pioneers that we're so lucky to have. As a PGA member, he was one of. He really paved the way. Along with your Kirkwoods and those early Globetrotters.
Unbelievable! What a raw talent. And like I said, and actually, you know what? I'm going to get a copy of that photo somehow, and I'll share that on my socials just so you can see people can see the sheer size of this bloke. And if you are interested, go on to was it YouTube where you saw that clip?
Yeah, just if you just go onto YouTube and you just put in there Jim Ferrier golf swing, it'll go to British Latrobe, I think, and they've got some footage there that's
unreal.
It's all licensed, but it's visible, and it's it was a bit of a unique move. He's a bit dippy at impact, but he knew how to get it done.
Reminds me a bit of myself, actually. I dropped down when I hit the ball on impact. I don't quite have a talent.
But what we do know is that he was a massive hitter, and that's back in the days with the steel shaft, persimmon wood, small heads, sweet spot of a 2-cent piece.
Like I say, raw talent. I mean, it's quite very, very impressive when you consider how good a ball striker he was, how well he hit it, and those clubs, because there was not the room for error we have today.
No.
It was a very different ball game. Now, mate, being part of this story of the Ferrier family, we're going to start to go backwards in reverse. So I'm going to liken this to one of my favourite Seinfeld episodes that goes in reverse, but we're going to see how this goes, because you mentioned at 4.5 years of age when Jim Ferrier started golf, and he was basically taught by his father and Dan Suter. Now, his father was known as J.B. Ferrier.
J.B. Ferrier, yep.
Now, I'd like you to give us, because he was attached to the Manly Golf Club, tell us in what capacity J.B. was involved.
Look, he was known as the ultimate golf administrator. He was the secretary manager here for 27 years.
In that era.
Yep, 27 years. That's a long time. That's you think about it, it's really just nearly a quarter of the life of the club.
Yeah.
He had his fingerprints all over those several decades of the foundation of the club. And, of course, through that era of all the great players that came through here through the 30s. So 27 years as secretary manager.
Wow.
And but what's really interesting is, what we're learning to is the history of the family and how many generations had such an impact in the game of golf.
Well, that's it. So I suppose we'll allude to some of the information. Recently, you've got some information through Les Brown, the Australian Golf Heritage Society, that goes back to the Chinese Golf Museum. So we're going back to China here. There's Wayne Jing, who's done a great deal of work, and I've got to mention these names because this apparently, and I've spoken to Les about this golf museum in China that Wayne Jing's done, spent a great deal of money and an incredible amount of time, effort and energy into researching the history of golf in China. But through that process was a lot of information about J.B. Ferrier and the family before him and their involvement in golf in China. So
this is very, very interesting. And look, if we just go back a couple of years prior to learning about this information, when I invited you here one Monday afternoon to meet a historian from Carnoustie.
Yep, David from Carnoustie is a historian.
Yep.
Travel the world.
So he reached out to me via email. He'd seen a couple of my history videos on the Forgotten Heroes of Manly, and one of them being about Ferrier and Kirkwood and Pickworth. Yeah.
Pickworth.
And he contacted me and said, look, we've got a lot of information to share with you folks from Manly that litter our walls of Carnoustie. Would you be interested in finding out more? I said, absolutely. So he came along for afternoon tea. I invited you, and that was just the start of an unbelievable day.
Oh, wasn't it? It's fantastic.
And we learned, and when he was referring to, this is where it's interesting, when he was referring to the family and, on the honour boards at Carnoustie, I was confused, thinking, this can't be Jim. I didn't realise that his father was on the honour boards here, and his father's father. And I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Well, it goes right back 4 generations to get to Carnoustie, where Jim Ferrier, and please try and follow the names as best you can, ladies and gentlemen, because there's lots of J's in this, but Jim Ferrier's great-grandfather was a founding member of Carnoustie Golf Club.
He was one of the 4 founding members.
One of the founding members of Carnoustie Golf Club. So we're going to endeavour to fill in the gap here in reverse, like I say, but this is where we're going to, is right back to Carnoustie Golf Club. Very celebrated golf club in golf's history.
And if you remember meeting Dave, the historian, he said it was a real tough working class town.
Yes,
with factories and steam trains, and a lot of the early members were young caddies that would work in the factory because they were small enough to fit in between the machines.
Mate, wasn't that wild to hear?
Most incredible story I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And it really put things into perspective on how tough those times were. And your average lifespan was well under 25, 30 years of age.
Exactly. So for them to get out of that and into golf was a big thing. And ultimately to travel the world. It was about getting out of that and giving them an opportunity to travel the world.
And having met him that day and hearing about how tough times were in Scotland in certain areas like Carnoustie, it makes sense now why so many of our early golf professionals and golf architects and greenkeepers actually left Scotland for a better life and came to Australia, New Zealand, and China, of course.
And this was something that I didn't really understand. I didn't know there was China in the middle of a golf history. I had no clue. I've never looked into that side of it. So hearing about a link in the Ferrier family from Scotland Scotland to Australia, but no, there was a detour in the middle with China. So JB Ferrier was born in China. So Jim Ferrier's father was born in China.
That's correct.
And there's a bit of history in there. He became an accountant ultimately, but he was a very good golfer. And I've got here some notes that we've found through this information that we've come from the Chinese Golf Museum, is that he was good enough to win the Shanghai Championship and the Shanghai Amateur Open at the same time.
Yeah, he was established amateur golfer himself. Absolutely.
So growing up in China, but this is where JB had come from. So he ultimately met an Aussie woman who would become his wife, and made the move to Australia in 1913. And that's how then, with that education behind him as an accountant, he'd come to here and ultimately would be attached to the Manly Golf Club.
That's correct.
And become one of the best managers at the time, best administrators of golf at the time.
And one of the longest serving too.
27 years is wild. So we've got this lineage already going back, and we know that there's a link. So how does a JB Ferrier get born in China, Phil?
Well, obviously his father found his way to China.
His father, who was the grandfather of Jim, known as James Ferrier. Now, mate, James Ferrier, now he came from the UK, came from Scotland. Can you tell us a bit about his background? He's born in 1847?
1847, absolutely, and like he was seen as an ambassador to the game of golf in Scotland.
Okay,
but he was like a generation earlier than the 300 immigrants that went to Asia when he went over there and did the work that he did.
Right. Okay, because he ultimately designed the first golf course in China.
That's correct.
When he got over there to China, which was. In fact, I've got some details there in that he had designed the first golf course in China, being the Hankow, and I forgive me for my pronunciation, of course, people, Hankow Golf Club, I believe. That was known as the first golf course ever to be made in China for golf.
Wow.
And that was James Ferrier, so Jim's grandfather. He had a pretty interesting nickname, which was Tom Morris of the Far East.
Tom Morris of the Far East, yeah. Well,
that's a hell of a nickname.
That's a pretty big rap.
Interesting and almost unbelievable that the Ferrier family had such an impact in China for golf, not knowing the prior history to Jim, as we know him here in Manly. So we've got James Ferrier coming to China to design the first golf course at Hankow, and then I think he went on to also design Shanghai Golf Course or Golf Club, the golf course there. But he was early on in his time coming in from Scotland. He was in the shipyards.
He was an apprentice. He was an apprentice shipbuilder.
Yep.
And then years later became an engineer. In the shipbuilding, and he actually joined a company called the China Merchant Steam Navigation Company, where he ended up being a marine engineer.
Right, okay, and that gets him his way over to China through those channels.
So it's interesting how he's got this background in golf. He was a pretty low marker himself, honed his skills.
Played off scratch, is that right?
He played off scratch, yeah, and I think he was a scratch marker at 16 when he was a young member at Carnoustie. And before he did any of this, he was actually secretary manager at 21 years of age.
That's unbelievable.
Of Carnoustie,
Of Carnoustie Golf Club. Mm-hmm. So the Ferrier family wasn't just we know the founding members, but he was a manager of Carnoustie Golf Club at the age of 21.
That's right.
Became a scratch golfer, done his time in the shipyards, had time to learn how to play golf and become that. I can't begin to tell anybody listening to this how amazingly good at golf you have to be off scratch playing with old equipment like that. Yeah, I'm looking around at the stuff you've got here. I wouldn't even know how to hit those things.
And I mean, I played on golf courses that were probably manicured pretty average.
Yeah,
would have been rough and ready. The greens would have been slow and furry, but they got it done, and they would have played in some pretty nasty conditions all year round.
Absolutely incredible. A very different type of golf. But
you think about this, James, his heritage, his background. He was a scratch golfer. He was an engineer on the ships.
Yeah.
And then he also had this love for golf and design, and then obviously through those skills was able to design golf courses.
And be the first to do so in China. And China's no small country either, by the way, for those that know. It's a large space. So we've got this impact of golf from Scotland into China through the Ferrier family. And then obviously we see that his son JB is born in China and then passes down golf through him, who ultimately then moves to Australia, and we get Jim. Now let's go back again. We've got let's go back even before to get the link all the way into being one of the founding members of Carnoustie.
Yeah, so let's you're talking before James.
So before James. So this goes back to Jim, as we began with, Jim's great-grandfather, whose name was John Ferrier. So they kept with the J's, which wasn't uncommon back then. So John Ferrier, Jim's great-grandfather, and we were just talking about James as James's father. John and his wife Isabella, they owned the Ferrier Inn.
That's correct.
In Scotland.
Yeah.
Which was nearby to Carnoustie.
That's right. So John was a founding member of Carnoustie, which was instituted in 1842.
That's unbelievable.
Yep. And then their son James was born 5 years later. But that's correct. They did own the inn, which was demolished, late 1800s, 1882 to be precise. But there's still a bunch of streets there named after.
That's incredible.
Him, being a founder.
Jim Ferrier, as we know him here in Australia, and lots of people that know a little bit of golf history, and as we mentioned, some of the tournaments that he won in his time, coming from Manly Golf Club, as we started this story, goes right back. Fourth generation backwards.
To one of the original 4 founding members of Carnoustie.
That is eye-watering, that information. and we're sitting here inside this clubhouse at the golf club that Jim Ferrier was a great part of, was great history connected to. We're literally following the one family, all the way back to one of the founding members of Carnoustie in 1842.
That's it, 4 generations.
That's unbelievable. That is absolutely incredible. This information is unreal to be able to not only share, but the discovery. I go back to Wayne Jing and his time in this golf museum in China. And I've got to mention the book because there's a book as part of that which is called Early Golf in China, 1870 to 1950, How Modern Golf Spread from Scotland to China. So there's some of that information that was shared. And like I said, this comes through Les Brown as well, having been over there and visited and sharing some of that info. But it's quite remarkable that one family has had such an impact on 3 different corners of the world.
Massive impact, yep.
It's quite incredible. And you're the pro here at this golf club.
Yeah, I'm just so proud of our heritage here. And to think that, everyone talked about Jim Ferrier, the 15-year-old club champion that went on to win the 47 PGA Championship and all of these titles worldwide. He's just 4 generations down the track from where it all began.
Absolutely mind-boggling.
So, genetically, there's something there that's been passed down through the generations. His father a scratch golfer, his grandfather a scratch golfer, his great-grandfather a founding member who would have been a fair player in his day as well.
Well, you're not going to start a golf club unless you are, right? You're obviously interested in golf to start a golf club and know nothing less than Carnoustie. Of course, obviously he had the Ferrier Inn. I mean, the pub was named after them. I mean, that's
and you think back to that first course he designed. The orders that would have generated out of St Andrews in Scotland for all of the equipment.
That's interesting.
The golf balls, the clubs. I mean, everything was made in Scotland and exported at the time.
And being part of the shipping company as well, obviously
absolutely
had some connection to and from. I mean, all these things add up to making it plausible and viable to introduce golf into another land.
What's really interesting is that over the last sort of 10 years, there's been lots of situations where they're trying to trace the heritage of an old Hickory Golf Club that was found in India or found in China.
Okay,
they're like, how did Hickory Golf Club end up in China? Well, a lot of the wealthy families had would have ordered clubs from the St Andrews company.
Yep,
and some of it could have originated at the Shanghai Golf Club,
Absolutely. Quite incredible. The connections to Scotland, like you mentioned, allowing for golf to prosper in other lands is hard work. And then we get from China to Australia, like I say, is pretty incredible with that family. Amazing legacy that we didn't really know.
Legacy. I mean, like we think about Jim Ferrier and his achievements, but his father, 27 years here as secretary manager, had such a great deal to do with the formation and foundation of the club for the decades to come,
and seeing Manly prosper, set it up to be what it is today.
Yep, absolutely. And we had winning pennant teams here at Manly, and that during his tenure, we had 3 or 4 great Aussie golfers, all play here at Manly.
Yep.
And it's just really interesting when you look at the sort of the growth of membership in Sydney on the Northern Beaches during those times, and he was there right at the start of it.
Unbelievable. Phil, what a story, what a background of Jim Ferrier, albeit brief, but it's great to be able to share some of this information. Like I mentioned, there's a book there for people to look, and if you're ever travelling to China, seek out the Golf Museum, because by all accounts, from Les, who's seen it, it is something to behold, I believe. So...
Yeah, well, I just look forward to the day we have an Australian Golf Museum where we can really honour our forgotten heroes.
It's something that we do often talk about. And I recently had a conversation with Les about just that. How do we do that better? How can we preserve? Because it's hard for clubs to do that on behalf of the country, on behalf of the nation, on behalf of the states. Individual clubs are, look after their own history, but I suppose we digress a little bit. But I agree with you. I hope somehow, some way, we can find a way in Australia to
there'll be some sort of collaboration. I mean, I think between the PGA and Golf Australia, there's a lot of fantastic golf history there. It's a matter of putting it all together in a timeline that's accurate. But the golf clubs, the metropolitan golf clubs, like your Manleys, your Concords, your Kalaras, your early clubs, have so much information in their archives about these early players and these pioneers that really set us up.
It's incredible. There's so much wonderful history, and I'll continue to try and help share that through the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast on Aussie Golf History. Phil Baird, Director of Golf here at Manly Golf Club, thank you so much.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for being a part of it.
A lot of fun, mate. Thank you for sharing this, and what a great story. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good on you.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. What a great segment that was. And a wonderful story about the Ferrier family, Jim, and it goes all the way back to his great-grandfather, who was, as you heard there, founding member of Carnoustie Golf Club. Quite incredible. A big thank you to Phil for his time in wanting to share this piece of history and this new information that's not so long ago come to light. And it was great to be able to have Phil on the pod and talk about and share this story. We're talking about whether there might be some more to come as well. So we've got some other pieces of history that I'm interested in, and we're talking about those at the moment. So we'll see what comes next and what we can share with you for some interesting Australian golf history. There's lots of stuff in the show notes, so go and check out the show notes. There's lots of clickables in there where I've done some homework for you, so you can go straight to the things that were talked about if you want to learn a little bit more. But a couple of bits of info that I wanted to add as a bit of a postscript to the podcast there. Now, you heard Phil talk about the Ferrier Inn, which Jim's great-grandfather and great-grandmother owned, and the Ferrier Inn was knocked down in the late 1800s. Now, in its place, after that was built another hotel, and today that hotel still stands in place of where the Ferrier Inn was, and it's called the 19th Hole Hotel, right near Carnoustie Golf Club, and it is on Ferrier Street. So the street was named after him, and the 19th Hole Hotel is on the corner of Ferrier Street and Kinloch Street, which is only a couple of blocks, 2 blocks from Carnoustie Golf Course. So it's there's lots of great history still there in place, and I just wanted to add that bit of information there. And also, only a few weeks ago now, by sheer chance, and I wanted to put this in the podcast, was that Phil Baird was playing in the Australian Hickory Championships up at Royal Queensland, and by sheer chance and not realising it, he ended up meeting Wayne Jing, the curator from the Chinese Golf Museum. Wayne Jing had come to Australia for the Hickory Championships, and by sheer chance, like I said, Phil didn't know. They didn't know each other. This was a random chance meeting of these two blokes. Here we are talking about from the information that Wayne Jing from his Chinese Golf Museum has brought to light, and it was great that they were able to catch up at Royal Queensland at the Australian Hickory Golf Championships. Wonderful to hear about those connections in golf through our history, and these two blokes foster and help preserve golf history as it is around the world, in terms of Phil here in Sydney and in Manly, and Wayne Jing and the Chinese Golf Museum. And I've got to make mention, of course, you heard us mention David, the historian from Carnoustie Golf Club. That's David McKeesey. When he came out to Australia a couple of years ago, we were able to meet with him at Manly Golf Club, and you heard Phil talk about that meeting that we had, and it was a wonderful meeting. But David has some wonderful information. He's incredibly knowledgeable on all history to do with Carnoustie, the Carnoustie Golf Club, and also the Carnoustie Golf Course. They're two separate entities. They're not one and the same. But David was instrumental in giving us a great deal of information as well to a lot of the history of the Carnoustie 300 and to do with Ferrier family. And that's where you heard Phil talk about that he didn't quite understand the Ferrier name and where that connection lied. And now we've been able to join the dots with Wayne Jing and the Chinese Golf Museum and have that story, family lineage, run all the way through. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that segment of Aussie Golf History. Please pass it around. Please like, share, and subscribe, and any reviews will be greatly appreciated. And like I said, always looking to do more of these segments of Aussie Golf History, trying to bring some of the shorter versions to the podcast. The big, long ones that I've done in the past of Avondale Golf Club and Kalara Golf Club, they're enormous golf club and golf history stories that are key parts of Australian golf history. They're incredible things to be able to work through with clubs. So if there's any clubs out there that are interested in doing work, feel free to come and talk to me and we can unearth parts of your history that you have probably long since lost, which is what we did with Kalara and Avondale in the process of shining a light and telling their wonderful stories, their wonderful historical stories. We also unearth things that have been long since lost and almost never heard of before. I've got all those clickables in the show notes as well, ladies and gentlemen. But look, I like to be able to bring some of these shorter versions to you. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening and taking the time to sit down and join us on this miniature journey with the Ferrier family. And I'll leave you with it once again. You hit 'em clean, we'll keep 'em green, and I'll catch up with you very soon.